Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and I'm taping this before the holiday. Merry Christmas to everybody who celebrates that today. But I pre-taped this just so I could enjoy the holiday with my family. But this was a Christmas present for a lot of Johnny Depp fans. His lawyers finally sent in his appeal. We got to see some of his arguments and thankfully bringing back facts as to why we were so frustrated with the original verdict and why we are now excited to see him finally stand back and prove some very important points here to hopefully get this appeal going. So I'm going to break down sort of some of the stuff I found here, and I'm going to put the links to the full appeals and stuff if you want to see them in the description of this video. Before I say anything, I'm not going to talk about anything specific. I'm going to gloss over any specific words that would be against any guidelines. So as I always say, YouTube human reviewer, please be respectful and let this go through, because I'm not going to talk about anything that I'm not supposed to. In fact, let's see if they made it limited. You know how this works. Did you see the ad? All right, let me know. All right, so let's get to this. First of all, before I even read, here's The Guardian, a lot of other outlets sort of, Johnny Depp did not get a fair trial, lawyers tell appeal court. Now, I got to give major props to Nick Wallis. Now, if you guys don't follow Nick on Twitter, you should, because he does a lot of fine work. He got this out first on the end of the day, the 23rd. He also put up all of the documents, the ground of appeal, the skeleton argument. He gets it all up and puts it on over there. It keeps everybody in tune to the actual legal documents of this case. So go show some love to Nick Wallis. Those of you who follow this case, you know him and you know the fine work that he does. But let's go through sort of the media's coverage of what happened, and I'll go through some of the broader points I want to make. So here's The Guardian calling out Johnny Depp did not receive a fair trial at the high court ruling that he stated Amber Heard put her, all these things are plainly wrong. Lawyers for the Hollywood star have told the Court of Appeal. 57-year-old sued The Sun over a column by editor Dan Wooten, which referred to overwhelming evidence that he had done something to Heard during their relationship, and I got to be careful on some of these keywords, and described him as the term that he's suing them for. I can't say some of those words, sadly, here, even though it's news and we're talking about the case. In the initial ruling, though, Mr. Justice Nicole dismissed Depp's claim, saying the paper's owner, News Group Newspapers, had proved what was in the article to be substantially true. Now, you got to remember, all they had to do was prove that 1% over the 50-50 deemed it true. But there's no evidence, guys. There really wasn't any evidence, and there was a lot of concurring evidence to sort of show that she was not a reliable witness, that she had changed her story, makeup, etc. A lot of things that didn't add up, and all of that was ignored. And he went through every case and sort of said they are almost all. He said all but two were definitively substantially true, and it makes no sense. And we'll get to more. Dismissing Depp's libel case, Nicole found that 12 of the 14 incidents of DV relied on the NGN did occur. The judge said Depp put Heard in a fear during what she described was, this. You guys know the specifics of this. In Australia, it was she says she was, stuck there. David's barrister, David Sherborne, has asked the appeal court to set aside the judgment and order a new trial. Yes, please. And I don't know the law over there and how this works, but yes, I hope, because she deserves it. This was not a fair trial. If permission to appeal against Nicole's judgment is given, in documents filed with the appeal court on Thursday, Depp's lawyers claimed Nicole's ruling was manifestly unsafe. Depp's legal team claimed Nicole failed to undertake any or an adequate analysis of Ms. Heard's shifting account facts, despite the importance of consistency as consideration of witnesses' testimony. Sherborne said Nicole concluded that the appellant was guilty of serious, this is the judge, serious accusations without taking account or even acknowledging that Ms. Heard had been untruthful in her evidence, which is also true, without testing her account against the documentary evidence and the evidence of other witnesses, and without making any findings that he disbelieved, disbelieved those witnesses. That's something you got to remember. There were witnesses in to combat a lot of these claims, and somehow 12 of the 14, all he had to do was find one. Let's be clear, which this was hard for Johnny. This whole case was hard because all he had to do was have, as Lindsay Glazer, the lawyer I had on, explained to me, all he had to do was have one account proved true at 51% of the 50-50, he said, she said debate. It's all he needed. And somehow he came out with 12 of the 14, and it makes no sense. Given the facts, if you go actually look at the facts and everything, there's no actual evidence. It's all hearsay, and I'll get to the main point here, but let's finish what The Guardian's saying here. Sherborne added his uncritical acceptance of her account of events is manifestly unsafe. talking about Amber's, that the judge just believed everything she said. Barrister also argued the conclusion, which flows from an overall assessment of the judgment, is that Mr. Justice Nicole decided to find for the victim, but failed to provide the necessary analysis to explain or justify that conclusion, which he didn't. He also excluded relevant evidence from his consideration, ignored or dismissed as irrelevant matters that substantially undermined Ms. Heard, made findings unsupported by the evidence, and failed to assess whether her allegations could withstand proper scrutiny. Judge failed to properly assess her credibility by reference to documentary evidence and photographs, recordings, and otherwise. Sherborne concluded here this was a very public judgment reached by a single judge, making devastating findings of extremely serious offenses that have been committed, where this has been has wider ranging implications for the public at large, particularly people who actually have gone through what she's accusing and those wrongfully accused, etc., etc. He added that it was therefore important in such circumstances that there was an effective appeal process. Facts. So there you go. The media's out there at least putting it out there. But I want to go through again to what Nick had thankfully got us these documents. I want to go through some of these quickly because something stood out. So here's the grounds for appeal, which he puts in. This is a skeleton argument, and this is the grounds for appeal. Number 6 is what I want to focus on. But this is the official grounds for appeal. Number 6, in this portion, here it is. This is in the grounds of appeal. This part of a judgment is plainly wrong and or the trial judge failed to examine the evidence and arguments with care that the parties were entitled to expect, and which a proper resolution of the issues demanded for the following reasons, any of which would be sufficiently to justify setting aside the decision in favor of the respondents, but which taken cumulatively render the judgment manifestly unsafe. So all these cases, but 6 really stood out for me. The judge made no findings that the appellant, that's Johnny Depp, or other witnesses were dishonest. I want to make sure I just don't have any other keywords that I can be in trouble there. So the judge made no findings that the appellant, Johnny Depp, or his witnesses were dishonest, as would be inevitable given his findings of fact. Despite this obvious and fundamental flaw with the judgment, the trial judge failed to give any real reasons as to why he did not accept their sworn testimony. And this one stood out to me because it's basically like he's calling Johnny a liar. You have 2 people in this case, right, who were step back, we got to be rational, use the facts. It's a he said, she said argument at the end of the day, right? Well, I know it's not, but bear with me. Just take it from that, right? It's a he said, she said argument, and you have witnesses who are discrediting what one of them said, right? So why were they not taken as fact? Why was only AH taken as fact? It's how this played out. There was actual evidence and people who spoke, including Johnny, who said that's not true, and he just decided, no, it's true. It's true. And it was all because of, the alcohol and stuff that just sort of, because he did that, he must have done that. And it's a huge jump to just say that, to say that can happen. And that's why I know a lot of us are frustrated because there was no proof. And so this judge said, well, yeah, no, there was. And there's so much to it in this case. And I can gloss some more small, but it's interesting besides just the grounds of appeal, which beyond even just that, I'm sorry I can't show you it all exactly. I'll make sure before I play it. The trial judge's findings on fact and issues and central importance amounted to bare assertions rather than reasoned decisions, following careful weighing up and reasoned analysis of the evidence given by both sides. As a result, there is no proper explanation for how the trial judge reached these various findings in the face of conflicting accounts of events, facts. He failed to give reasons to explain what evidence he found to be sufficiently cogent as to satisfy the required standard of proof in light of the criminal nature of the allegations complained. Failed to test the oral evidence given by Ms. Heard against contemporaneous documentary evidence or the evidence from numerous independent and professional witnesses. Further, he reached conclusions on this evidence which were outside of the bounds of reasonable finding, particularly given the implausibility of many aspects of her account, which if treated or followed through consistently would have critically undermined the veracity of her account, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, look, this thing's long and there's a lot to it, but it's very important to read and go through because this is why we're not, why we're upset. This is why we're not bots just sort of, I love Johnny. Look, I do enjoy Johnny, but I'm not standing Johnny so hard that I'm doing this because I love Johnny. I'm doing this because of my own situation and knowing facts are important. And when you know the inside information of this case, and then hear what this judge did. And this judge, don't forget, has weird relationships. His son works for Rupert Murdoch, who owns the newspaper. His there was a connection to Amber through one of his friends. And there's a lot of just stuff you're just like, this guy shouldn't even have been there. And so seeing how the media and everyone sort of is taking this out, I think they just expect Johnny to go away. They just want this to go away and be like, yep. And he's not going to do it. And I applaud him for it. And we should continue to have his back on all this. Look, there's a lot in these documents. As I've gone through them, it's incredibly important that if you want to be educated on this issue before just sort of teaming up with a side, here's the other side, right? So you can hear Amber's and say, well, no, Johnny did this, and I've seen this, and sure, he said some nasty things in text, etc. But, again, evidence saying of what he's actually accused of doesn't exist. And so you got to go through all this to see why this was so biased and why we have so much trouble accepting it. It's not because we're standing Johnny Depp, right? It's because of evidence. It's because of the fact that he didn't hear any specific evidence. And so the skeleton argument is another great read to go through because it really goes through and gives a lot of examples and starts sort of his process of what he's going to be following. There's too much to go through in a video, as you can tell. It's a lot. But, conclusion here, I'll sort of failings described above are examples of the serious flaws in the way the judge performed his task. This is, after 66 examples, the conclusion which flows from an overall assessment of the judgment that he decided to find for the victim, but failed to provide the necessary analysis to explain or justify that conclusion. Also, excluded relevant evidence from his consideration, ignored or dismissed as irrelevant matters that substantially undermined Ms. Heard, making her findings made her findings unsupported by evidence, failed to assess whether allegations could without proper scrutiny, failed to properly assess her credibility by reference to the footage, etc. So lots here, and then it continues. So there's so much there. I'll put the links to both of these again. Thank you to Nick for making this easily accessible for all of us. But long story short, these are good. Let's hope for a Christmas miracle that he finally does get a fair trial, because he didn't. He didn't get one, and that's what's really frustrating about all this. And I hope at some point someone is able to look through this and say, wait a second, this is much more complicated. Yeah, why did you ignore this? Why are you believing her in this case based off what evidence? Why did you ignore this witness? The officers, etc. There's a lot, guys, and you guys know if you're following the case, and if you don't know, read this so you can get a little bit more insight, a quick read. It's a little bit of a longer read, but this is sort of a good, digestible way to get your insight and know that justice for Johnny Depp is a real thing that we got to be fighting for. So thanks to all of you who have been supporting and watching. If you haven't already, please, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe bell. It helps. Hit the alert for all notifications. Smash that like button while you're there, and leave a comment for the engagement. Tell me if you see another ad. Usually there's 2 or 3 ads in a video sometimes. That's just how we pay the bills, so thank you for bearing with them if you can watch them. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. If you're watching this later, I hope you're having a great day. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here to Popcorn Planet and Justice for Johnny. Stay tuned for more here on the channel. Thanks again, everybody. Check out the links. I'll put them in the description below. And check out this content in the meanwhile while you're watching. Thanks, everybody.